Okay, let's go over some of the ingredients that's gonna go into all this. The steaks are really pretty easy. Stuffed mushrooms, they got a few extra ingredients. Let's check this out. We've got some olive oil here. We've got some sea salt, got Old Bay seasoning. I've got some black pepper. I like the fresh cracked, it just tastes better, I don't know. I've got these breadcrumbs here I'm gonna be putting in there, some oregano, got an onion we're gonna chop up. We've got our mushrooms, we're gonna stuff those. I got these steaks at Costco, and it's really incredible because these steaks were listed for $18 a pound because it's prime sirloin. This is prime sirloin, understand? And if you look here real close, you can see it was $10.49 a pound. Tried to tell the guy it was mispriced. He didn't want to hear it. Okay, I'll go ahead and buy your steaks. Got some grass-fed butter. I get this at Costco too, Kirkland brand. It's really awesome. Got some crab meat here, Phillips crab meat, some of the best. Duke's mayonnaise, doesn't get any better than that, and got a little bit of parsley. Okay, let's get to it and let's get started. Okay, so what I've done is I've sauteed those onions and the garlic in this pan here with a little bit of butter. And you don't want to overdo it because the garlic can burn real easy and the onions will cook a lot slower than the garlic will. So I'm going to suggest that you maybe put the garlic in after you cook the onions for a little bit. And once you've done this, you want to make sure you take it off the burner. Don't want to leave it on the burner. Let's get over to the mushrooms. Okay, so I've pulled the stems out of all these mushrooms you can see here. And you know, some are bigger than others, it doesn't matter. If you notice, I've stored them all upside down like this because they do soak up a lot of water. We don't want water in them. Now that they're dry, we can go ahead and position them out. Start to make that stuffing to go in there. And these can be made, you can stick them in the fridge, you know, a half hour, hour in advance, just so that you have it ready. And that helps a lot with the timing of your meal. I see a lot of people trying to cook everything at the same time. It's hard to do, and make it all come out at the same time. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and prepare these. We know how long the steak's gonna take, and we'll put these in the fridge until we're ready for them. And let's go ahead and make the stuffing. You see how good that crab meat looks on top? You know why? Because it's on top. If you dig down a little bit, it won't look so good. They always put the big pieces on top, and these are not meant to use. These are meant to, I think, just eat. Yeah, that's what that's for. All right, let's put some in a bowl. We're gonna use about a half pound for this. Now, a lot of recipes will tell you to chop this up so you have little tiny pieces. But why buy that great crab meat and then chop it up? I don't get it. So we're not gonna do that. And that should just about do us. That should be enough. And we're looking about a half pound. Make sure you refrigerate this right away. Okay, now we're up to the stage. We got our crab meat out. We got to start making the actual stuffing. So what we're going to do is we're going to use about a teaspoon or so of Old Bay. Not quite that much, maybe. We'll do about that. Spread it around. Don't put it all in one spot because it's tougher to get it to incorporate, and when you do that also you're going to break down that crab meat. So we're going to put a little bit of oregano in there, maybe about a half teaspoon, something like that. And then we're going to put about, let's see here, probably about a half teaspoon of salt. Doesn't need much really because you got the Old Bay in there and the crab meat's kind of salty anyhow, but it needs just a little bit to wake up the flavor. And then we're going to put about a half teaspoon of black pepper. I know this gadget's incredibly cool. I'll put a link in the description where you can get a pepper grinder like that. It's pretty neat stuff. Then we're gonna put about a tablespoon of mayo in there. You don't want too much, but you do need a binder in there. And that's my measurement right there. Now, remember that melted butter I talked about? I got that ready. I'm just gonna kind of pour that in there, get that all mixed around. That's what gives it flavor right there. Yeah. Cool little melter here. I'll put a link for that also in the description. And give that a light mix, but not much, because we don't want to break up that crab meat too much. We do have to get that mayo incorporated in there. We're going to add our onions and garlic now. Those are all cooked down. You notice they're a lot smaller now than they were. They cooked down quite a bit. Nice and golden. Those will be perfect. You saw me mixing that with a fork. Don't do that. Get your spoon, it's a whole lot more gentle on it. Now we're gonna put some breadcrumbs in here, but not a lot. Don't overdo this breadcrumb thing. You know, I would say maybe a quarter of a cup. Try to spread it around a little bit. That way you don't stir it as much. Let's grab some of that fresh parsley and put that in there now. And we just really want to kind of fold it together is all we really want to do. Okay, let's get some of these out of the way, and we're gonna chop up some parsley real quick. Just grab some of that. And I usually keep this like in a glass with some water, and it stays a whole lot more fresh than if you put it in the refrigerator. It kind of goes bad pretty quick. So we want this pretty fine though. You don't want any big pieces of parsley in this. Remember, keep those fingers tucked in. I don't always remember. I'm probably only going to use about half of that, I'm thinking. Though the more you cut it, the more it tends to disintegrate, which is kind of what we want. We just want it for maybe a little bit of color in there and some flavor. So let's go ahead and stick some of that in our mix. I'd say that's a good amount right there. Give that one final stir. I know you want to eat this right now, right? I mean, you can, right? Nothing uncooked in there. You probably could eat it right now. Probably shouldn't, but you could. I'm starting to think about it. Let's see. Yeah, you can. It's very good. All right, let's stuff these mushrooms now. This one here will probably be mine. I'm just guessing by the sheer volume of it. But you know, there's all different sizes here, if you notice that. And it doesn't matter, okay? You can have all different sizes. Restaurants will tend to have all the same size. I know my son worked at Ruth Chris, and he says the amount of food waste is unbelievable. If something isn't shaped right, isn't colored right, isn't the right size, it goes in the trash. And you're paying for that with those high prices because they have so much food waste. But at home, we don't need to waste food, do we? No. So it doesn't matter if your mushroom's big or small, right? It's all about the flavor, guys. It's all about the taste. We were at lunch today and I was talking to my wife about that, and I said, would you rather have really good service or really good food? And she says, well, does that mean the other one's gonna be really bad? I said, yeah. She said, I'd much rather have really good food. I think we're all like that, right? We want really good food. I think a lot of restaurants forget that. They get all fancy and they fix up the restaurant and you got music and all that stuff, and then the food's bad. We don't want that. You remember these guys, right? These are our mushrooms. We're getting ready to put them in the oven. We're gonna put them in at around 350, and probably for about 15 minutes is how long it will take to cook these. However, mushrooms can be big, they can be small, right? The oven may not be exactly 350, so what you want to do is check them. You got to check your food when you're cooking. Okay, we've preheated this, so it is 350. Don't put in your food until the oven is heated, okay? Because it's based on that temperature. If you put it in ahead of time, it's gonna, cook it incorrectly. It may cook it too fast, it may not cook it properly. So make sure you do that. I'm gonna go ahead and hit the button, and we're gonna get started. Now we're gonna only cook this for about 15 minutes, but this is preset to 30, and I just don't wanna bother setting it to 15. Okay, now we're gonna get ready to do the steaks. Let's talk about that first. The steaks at Ruth Chris are cooked in a special oven. It's 1800 degrees, and it's a broiler on the top. So we're gonna try to replicate that a little bit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the oven to broil, and I know the oven will only get to 550, but what we're gonna do to cheat the system a little bit is I'm gonna use a cast iron skillet to put those steaks in, and that way it'll get a really good sear on the top and bottom. We'll probably do it about 3 minutes each side. We'll check the temperature, which is something you gotta do. Every steak's different, okay? You can't cook the same number of minutes on every single steak because of the thickness of it, okay? How thick is that steak? So let's go ahead and get the oven set now. Okay, let's talk about the steaks now. These are the two steaks we're gonna cook. Now these are sirloin. Generally, sirloin has the best flavor. However, it's usually not that great. But these are prime sirloin, so that makes them wonderful. And you can see all the marbling that goes through here. It's really hard to mess up a good cut of meat. It really is. The only two things you can do to mess it up is overcook it or under season it. There's only two things you can do. If you have a bad cut of meat, there's almost nothing you can do to make it good. It's just not gonna be good because it's not a good cut of meat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna season these. You know, you can do what you want. If you just want salt, that's fine. If you want salt and pepper, that's fine. But what I like is I like salt and pepper, about 40%, and then about 20% I like garlic powder. So what I've done is I've mixed that up into this container here, and that way every time I'm ready to eat a steak, I have this ready. And this is a good seasoning, you know, that you can make ahead of time and have it. If you buy seasonings that are pre-mixed like this, they cost you an arm and a leg. You're gonna pay 5 or 6 times as much. Why not just mix some kosher salt, some fresh cracked pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder, and that's what I've done here. Okay, let's get these steaks seasoned up now, and you wanna make sure you season them really good. I know it looks like a lot of seasoning, but the thing is, that's a thick piece of meat. Okay, so I've got the steaks all seasoned up. It looks like too much seasoning, but it really isn't because this is a big cut of meat. And you wanna make sure you season all the sides of the meat. And that's a big trick to the steakhouses is they season their food. Too many people at home don't season their food. So we got those all seasoned up now. We're gonna put them in the pan in just a minute. Mushrooms are almost done. They're taking a little longer than I thought. They're probably gonna take closer to 20 minutes or something like that. But that's okay, you're a home cook. You can eat when you want. Okay, so once the first cook is done, before I flip them over, that's gonna be for about 4 minutes. You wanna make sure you check the temperature. And I like this little gadget here. I'll put a link in the description below there, and you can actually use this. You just turn it on right there. It's real simple. You hit this button, and the spike comes out just like that. You stick it in your food, you got an instant read. Really good stuff. The other thing that Ruth Chris does is they put the plates in the oven. They put these plates in the oven and they heat them up. And the reason they heat them up like that is because Ruth Chris, they want the person's first bite to be as hot as the person's last bite. And the only way to do that and ensure that is to make sure the plate is hot. So we're gonna do that about 5 minutes before our steaks are done. Okay, so I just turned the steaks over. You can see them sizzling there. They've been cooking for about 4 minutes. We'll cook them another 4 minutes on the other side. Now, don't always assume because I tell you 4 minutes, it's gonna be exactly 4 minutes. On the second cook, what you wanna do is you wanna go ahead and check the internal temperature. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. Okay, let's see what we got. You're looking like, it's still pretty cool in the center, in the 80s, so we're okay. So we'll go ahead and close it up and continue to cook. Okay, so we're gonna cut into it, see how we did. And I gotta tell you, too many people will cut off the edge of a steak to see how it's done. That's gonna be the most cooked area. You wanna cut the middle of the steak to see how it's done. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, I think we did good, don't you? Check that out. Zoom in a little bit. Does that look good or what? Now, if you cook a steak right, you don't even need a sauce. So let's go ahead. We've got just a touch of butter on the plate here. Go ahead and take a bite here. Oh yeah. As Mark Wiens would say, oh wow, that's really good. Let's try those mushrooms. Oh, crab meat looks so good. Does that look good or what? All right, let's get a bite of it. Even better cooked. Remember, I was eating that stuffing raw. It was really good.